Let's move on to our first panel discussion, the changing role of IT departments when moving to the cloud in 2022. It is indeed an honor for me to introduce our renowned panelists. And like I always do, let's start with our moderator, Mr. Mohammed Hamid, Chief Technology Officer, Ceramica Platino Group, Mr. Mashari AlMussaed, IT Director, Saudi Arabian Olympic Committee, Mr. Abdulaziz Almugairin, Director of Strategy and Digital Transformation, the Saudi Sports for All Federation, Mr. Bandar Alogbi, IT Infrastructure Manager, Saudi Aerospace Engineering Industries, Engineer Badr Tharwat, Workload Architect, Leader, Oracle EMEA. Over to you, Mr. Hamid, to moderate the panel. The stage is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Roger. And thank you for all our professional panelists with me today to get some of minutes to talking about the changing role of IT department when moving the cloud in 2022. There are many benefits company can be experienced when moving to the cloud technology. This shift can be not only help term budget, but also positively enhancement the way our workforce to communication. This is will be first asking the Mr. Mashari for the first question.
Yes, I'm welcome to be with you here. Problem that I have a public meeting with the government. This is why I'm moving from office to office. I'd be honored to be with you, and I hope that we add value to your committee.
For sure, thank you. How cloud computing has changed the future of the internet technology, Mr. Mashari?
The cloud computing is like the Pandora box, really. It's a good benefit, give you maximization for all the technology, all the way that we can curve our technology from physical machine and even open the limit for all the hardware feasibility. You can easily add services, you can easily add space, you can change the type of the IBM on what will click of a button. It makes it easy to manage. Before in the physical machine, you need a team to manage a big enterprise company. Now you need only two gentlemen. One of them can be online, sitting in anywhere, even in Hawaii, and can manage it by his small tablet, not a professional laptop. This is why we said computing is very good, that will add you a lot of things. You can add an extra license better than you stuck in the license. Like if you have like a 3 or 5 servers, if you have any hardware security system, even backup system and through iOS or anything regarding the security management, you will have it all automatic in one box, like all in one. Easy to manage, easy to use, and even you can enhance and you can add a company, remove a company by. I'm very sorry that I've been disconnected from the service, but at the end, to conclude, hybrid technology or cloud hybrid is a must for any new IT manager. You must use it to lower the cost, have more resilient and even better performance for your network.
That sounds great.
I'm very sorry that for inconvenience the location that I'm in has that they have a lot of variant for the technology.
Yes, great. This is will be go to the Mr. Abdulaziz for what are the major migration challenge focused by the organization will be moving towards the cloud.
Thanks so much, Mohammed. I think I'll try to summarize the challenges in 5 main points, starting with the strategy. I believe many entities, those who want to transfer or to the cloud technology don't have a clear IT strategy. They need to understand the purpose of this cloud service. They need to align with other departments because those departments will actually use the cloud service. They need to make sure it does solve their problems. This is one. The second most important point is understanding the cloud environment itself, the purpose of the cloud, and what's the main services or features that will enhance the progress or the performance. For example, is the purpose for the cloud to simply store the data, or is it a tool to use to collect other data from other data centers, or is it to analyze the current data on the system, or maybe to utilize the system itself and use tools like forecasting. All these points are critical because it will have a cost for each service, and this is the third point. We need to manage the budget because depending on the usage of the cloud service, there comes the cost. The fourth point could be the security and the confidentiality of the information hosted on the platform. Understanding the information that will be hosted give us an opportunity to pick the best cloud solution for the entity. For example, for a confidential information, it can't be hosted outside Saudi Arabia. That's why it's critical to understand the type of data, then pick the right cloud service. Lastly, and this could be this could happen after implementing the cloud service, is the maintenance factor. Who will manage this cloud service? Are the employees trained? Do they have enough skills to maintain the network? Because it does require for sure 24/7 maintenance. So these are the 5 main points, I believe, the 5 main challenges that could help people pick the right cloud service for their organization.
Thank you. So great. You talking about security. Will be go to Mr. Bandar to what approach should be used to prepare IT staff for the cloud.
Yes, thank you, and I'm glad to be part of the panels for today. Back to the questions. I mean, the main approach that I used and my team used for preparing the IT staff to move to the cloud, especially if they are not used to it, is to, I mean, we have 3 stages, obviously. Stage 1 is to make sure that the team is capable of handling the cloud tools, the new tools that they're going to use based on the cloud providers platform that has been chosen. The way to do this, at least from my perspective, is to engage the cloud provider themselves, if they have this as a service, to provide it as a managed services, at least for the test environment that you need to start with. You cannot go ahead and, bing bang and just go ahead and move. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of issues, and instead of benefiting from cloud, it's going to be the other way around. So start with a small test environment, but complete test environment, meaning having the application test environment, having the application server, having the database, if there's any databases, any interfaces that need to be there, the full test, and have the cloud provider with your team to go ahead and do the migration and having everything set up. This is where you gain a lot of information, a lot of staff, and obviously you need to engage all specialty. So you cannot have system team do this. You have to have from each of the specialty, at least the leads, if not the key users from your team, to go ahead and be in this stage of the movement. Once everything done, obviously you're going to have lesson learned, things of that nature that's going to help mitigate any other issues when you actually have the actual move. Obviously, the second stage will be to have a good plan with either the cloud provider services or with a certified partner who actually can deliver this for you. Once and the lesson learned that we have from stage 1 are ready to go ahead and move to stage 2 and 3 in this to the cloud full, and obviously the lift and shift will be done in collaboration with your staff as well as with the cloud provider. That's the approach that we are using. We found a lot of issues in stage 1, but thankfully it's not has been mitigated, and it's not really realized thankfully in stage 3. This will be my approach for the movement, or for preparing your IT staff for the cloud.
So great, thank you. Now will we go with Mr. Badr. How should an IT select the cloud stable for this business?
Okay, thank you for having me first of all. This is a very good question. Cloud computing has been, it used to be something new and fresh to the entire market, but gradually it turned into a commodity. So now while you're picking a cloud solution for your enterprise, there are many out there. And typically, every scenario you can find at least 2 or 3 clouds serving it. So when it comes to selecting the proper cloud that would work into your scenario, there are certain areas that you need to focus on. First of all, I like to think from in a hierarchical way. We start with the data part. Can you retain the data? Do you need to retain the data within the country or out of the country? Is this something that you will worry about later? The second point, so for instance, if you have compliance or in a regulated industry, if you have compliance issues or a regulated industry, then you need to keep the data within the region or within the country even. The second point that you should think about is your future, the future plan. Do you intend to go for a global expansion, or do you intend to retain your digital product within the country? So for instance, if you want to go for a global expansion plan, you might as well go for a cloud that has multiple sites around the world, especially in regions that you care about. The third point that you should think about, and this is a point that Mr. Bandar talked about, is the skill set or the skill gap. We're still in an emerging market, and up to this moment, you might find certain skill gaps when dealing with certain clouds. You need a cloud that is easy to recruit for, and you need to go for that Toyota of clouds, if the analogy works. You need to go for a cloud that anybody can actually pick it up and work with it. And finally, the type of workload that you're working with. If you're working with something very niche, let's say something very resource intensive and require GPU, then certain clouds are better than others. If you're looking for a cloud that would provide you with a cheaper network access, if you're in a streaming service, for instance, or one of the new educational platforms, you need to find a cloud that is more geared towards high bandwidth and wouldn't cost you an arm and a leg. And finally, the last point is the financial one. I intentionally kept that as a last point because people tend to think of the clouds and they start by comparing it financially first, while in reality, it's like one of the least important reasons, but still it's an important one to select a cloud. You need to think about how much it's going to cost you over the next 5 years. Are you going to introduce scaling, auto-scaling? Are you going to use spot instances? Our typical financial models that our IT departments have been using, many of them do no longer hold when it comes to the cloud, because in our typical IT infrastructure, you don't have scaling, you don't have spot instances, you don't have instances that you can bid for. So that financial model needs to be tuned as well. So basically, these are the areas that you should think about while selecting a cloud. And it's quite different from your typical infrastructure selection process. Thank you.
Sound was great. Thank you. Will be back to Mr. Abdulaziz to ask what is the long-term impact for cloud in public sector?
I don't want to stress with lots of information. I just want to highlight the mega opportunities that could happen with the cloud computing. It's a simple word: collaboration. Organizations can collaborate, and the only way they can collaborate is through the cloud services. They can share data, and they can build built up on previous data, and not in the case where where each entity they need to start from scratch. This could help the organizations perform better by sharing their knowledge, and this is what this is the case with the big companies. Microsoft acquired LinkedIn and Minecraft and other mega companies, not just for the revenue part, it's also for the data collection part. And I'll leave this point with one of my favorite quotes from Deloitte Insights. It says, don't just adopt cloud, adapt to it. Thank you.
So great. Mr. Bandar, what that change need to be considered when you're moving to the cloud-based operation?
Yes, actually, this is a very excellent question, and it actually, the considerations need to be, I mean, we have 3 items that we can make sure that we consider when we move to the cloud versus obviously being on-premise. The main things, obviously, or at least the first item is obviously going to have less hardware management task for your IT staff there. Obviously, because you're moving to the cloud, or even if you're hybrid, you're going to have less hardware management, task operations, you name it. This is going to be less load, which is a good thing. But on the other hand, you have to transfer that capacity that now you have to the cloud. And as I mentioned before in the previous questions, and I think Mr. Badr already mentioned, the skill sets is going to be an issue if you did not go ahead and work at the beginning to make sure that you elevate your team to be able to do that. Now, this is very important. And I think Mr. Badr just mentioned another item, which is you need to choose a provider that actually has enough skill set to be able to do. This is maybe good or possible for some companies that don't have to adhere to the NCA in Saudi Arabia. Obviously, we know the NCA required that we have local cloud, and they're very determined about this one. And we have maybe 1 or 2 barely hyper companies that actually can provide cloud provider in Saudi Arabia. Hopefully more will come, but until this is happening and we have more broader options, you need to really focus on how elevating the skill set of your team to be able to manage it, the tools that you're going to have. And the second thing is utilizing automation as much as possible. This is going to offset any skill sets that you don't have or the market doesn't have or you cannot acquire soon enough by automating, obviously, capability in the cloud provider themselves. If they have the automation there, you need to utilize it as much as possible. This is maybe the reason why we have cloud, that we have things that we can automate. This is already done as part of the platform of the cloud provider, but obviously it's something that you need to get used to and utilize. Otherwise, it's a waste of opportunity there. Lastly, I think Mr. Badr mentioned the financial model. This is very paramount because your staff, your team, yourself used to on-premise. On-premise is a different financial models. You have research, you have acquiring product, installing the hardware, maintaining it for the life cycle, 3-5 years, whatever, and then you have the decommissioning of it and obviously replacement. Here, it's a different matter altogether. It's totally different. It's calculation per hours. And you can easily, if you don't watch out and you don't go ahead and make your change, you will find yourself that maybe cloud is even more costly than actually staying on premise. And the promise to your upper management or executive that this is going to be cost saving will be the opposite immediately within a year or 2. So you need to really watch out, and you need to teach your staff and yourself how to manage per hour. And again, I can just not emphasize enough automations of shutting down test environment. This is something that you probably did not have on premise. Now you need to really utilize it to be able to reduce the cost as much as possible. And hopefully you will gain that financial benefit that cloud everywhere, at least promoting that it's something that you're going to get. So that will be my my answer to that question. Yeah.
Thank you. Will be for this good automation. We'll be asking engineering Badr about the impact of cloud computing on digital innovation and processor to process. This is processing now for that.
Okay, thank you. That's a very interesting question indeed. And just to address the point about the presence of hyperscaler clouds in Saudi Arabia and in the region in general, things are changing, and now we're having more and more hyperscalers being introduced by the moment. Already, CITC have certified one, Oracle Cloud, which is already certified as C-class, which is like top secret information, even you can host it on our cloud. But going back to the point about innovation, the challenge with innovation is you need to be very fast about it, and you need to be able to pivot as you go. Unfortunately, your typical procurement process is not innovation friendly. You come up with an idea, you want to implement it. The first thing you need to do is to source the hardware and software to do it. And this goes through the normal procurement process, which takes months. By the time you're done and you have all you need to innovate, it's already too late, or you already invested too much to make a mistake. So what do people do? They either avoid innovation altogether or just go for the safe bets, outsourcing innovation completely outside and just acquiring rather than innovating and taking on the risk themselves. The good thing is, and by the way, when I talk about innovation, I'm not talking about the new Facebook or the new Twitter. I'm talking things that are quite tangible or quite down to earth as well. Think about operational innovation. For instance, setting up a CI/CD or a DevOps pipeline for an organization. That's kind of innovation that I'm talking about, not the big build kind of what do you call it, innovation. So the cloud provides a very interesting advantage here. So rather than going in and investing hundreds of thousands ahead of time and having to wait for a very long time before you see any value, you can just go in and rent the service from the cloud to use it for a couple of days, validate your idea. The point here is the ability to build an MVP is really liberated. All you need to do is to get a couple of resources, spend a couple of thousands, even hundreds, and there you go. You have something that you can show for, or you can actually validate the idea that you've got, whether it works or not. Again, I'm talking about all kinds of innovation, but the operational innovation is what I'm mostly interested in. The second point here is when you try to build something from the scratch up, typically the cost is very high because you need system admins, you need network admins, you need people to build the thing from the ground up, while using past products, platform as a service products, that saves you a lot of effort because much of the work has been done for you by the cloud provider. Finally, the security. People tend to go and innovate and they get excited about the idea, and many do not have enough information to secure a product properly. So think about that new application that works for water consumption off the top of my head, for instance. If you're not securing it well enough, you might end up jeopardizing all of the data of your customers. The good thing about the cloud is the security is typically built in. So you don't need to worry about these things. You just focus on the functional area that you need to innovate in. I believe the cloud is really a liberator of digital economy. And if you want to have a healthy digital economy, you need to have clouds, not a single cloud. So one of the advantages that we have here in the Saudi market in particular, and the name of the session, even hybrid cloud, is the ability to be able to operate across multiple clouds and integrate them easily. I think this would be in our near future. Thank you.
So great. This is will be go to get a briefly for our day today with cloud, maybe for 5 pillars like a cost saving, improve data and security. Also more transformation to automation, insight and analytics, better data recovery, and ability to scale up and scale down. Also can more environment friendly and increase time saving. This is about from me. If anyone from my panelists want to get a small sentence to end our of day. Anyone get this opportunity?
Yeah, actually, I can mention, I mean, we can just recap. I mean, Mr. Badr, Mr. Abdulaziz, and everyone else has, I mean, has already mentioned. I mean, at least particularly for Saudi Arabia, as Mr. Badr just mentioned, OCI is here, which is the first cyber company to actually be here. And we are actually engaging with them because the only one that actually can provide us with the SLA or the promise that you just mentioned for, scalability, flexibility, financial models that we just talked about, and hopefully the automations that we're looking for, and, the artificial intelligence, data mart, and all the good things that we are trying to achieve here in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for Vision 2030. Obviously, more to come. Hopefully, I believe Alibaba is also coming. But again, it's very paramount that we have more options in Saudi Arabia and to actually have the skill sets. This is something I mentioned to Oracle in an event a few weeks ago, and they are determined to hopefully upscale with the training, with the academic, with education. And this is something that I believe the universities here and the college that we have here need to really, increase the capability and the skill set that we have in the kingdom. Otherwise, we're not going to gain the benefit as soon as we wish to have.
Thank you. Engineering, Badr, do you want to comment for one sentence before closing?
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, sure. When it comes to training and enablement, the beauty of the cloud is if you know one cloud, most probably can operate in others. So with all training in the market, I think us and other competing clouds are all offering free courses and free certification. I think it's something that we are all working, even though we're competing in many other areas, but when it comes to that in particular, we're all working in the same direction. And surprisingly, fresh grads, right now I'm hiring for my team, for instance, fresh grads are more cloud literate than your average professional because they spend their entire 4 years in university working with the cloud. While someone who graduated was as old as me, for instance, the cloud did not even exist back when I was in uni, right? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for all. Thank you for all my panelists. And thank you for organization and this great event. Back to you, Roger.
Thank you, Mr. Hamid. But we have a couple of questions. Can we put those questions to the panelists so that they may answer them?
Okay.
All right. The first question that we have is, what are the top considerations in moving to the cloud? In case anybody wants to do that, what are the top considerations that we need to keep in mind?
Yeah, I thought I just listed these. When I was talking about my point, I was actually addressing these in particular. So we're talking about compliance and regulation, data security, capabilities that you're looking for, global presence, as well as finally a financial one. There are 5. Some people would actually care about latency and data and the broadness of the data linked to the cloud, but that is part of the capabilities, if you ask me.
Right. Thank you. And we have another question which is coming in. So, how do we prepare the IT department before moving to the cloud? If anybody could take that.
Yeah.
Mr. Bandar can answer.
Yeah, I believe we had that questions before, maybe in a different form, but again, your IT department or IT staff need to be staged to be able to handle the regular IT from on-premise to cloud. So as we mentioned, you need to have a test environment, move to the cloud with a collaboration with the cloud provider or certified partners. This will in turn allow your staff to find themselves, find the tools, how to utilize the tools, and hopefully bridge the gap between on-premise and what they used to do, and now the new tools and the new platform, the power of the cloud. Obviously, in this stage, you need to involve each and every specialty you have, to be able to have the full benefit of this stage. Secondly, obviously, to have a full-fledged plan in details for the lift and shift that you're going to have from on-premise to cloud. This is obviously need to also be in collaboration with your partner, certified partner, or the cloud provider if they have it as a service. And obviously, the final will be to actually do the production or the lift and shift with your collaboration with the partner. Hopefully, by that stage, your IT team is well aware and understand exactly how to utilize this, the tools available and all the details differences between what they used to be on premise as well. And obviously during this time, I believe Mr. Badr mentioned that new generation probably have that skill set, or inshallah they have that skill set, but regardless, you need to make sure that they are capable and you give them the education, the certification during this time. So hopefully they are easily and can simply walk through that cloud task that they need to do very easily. These are the three stages that I believe that should go, and obviously more variation of that will also work hopefully.
Thank you, Bandar. And we have few more questions. I'm going to throw it open to the panelists. If each of you want to pick it up for 1 or 2 minutes. So why is cloud computing the future? Keeping KSA in mind, why is cloud computing the future?
Yeah, simply because NDU says so, right? I mean, that's a simplistic answer, but if you look at the CITC and the National Digitization Unit and the digital strategy for the kingdom, it's cloud first. So that's a very abridged answer. But there is a whole paper written by NDU in partnership with CITC on why cloud first strategy is the direction to go for. And that's why you find a lot of cloud. Part of that strategy, by the way, is attracting more hyperscaler cloud providers into the kingdom. And that's why you're seeing us and others, Oracle and others, joining in here to do that and to actually offer their services. And the entirety of the Saudi government is going for the cloud, be it public, private, or hybrid, but that's the direction.
Thank you. So we have one more question. How do we prepare the IT departments before moving to the cloud, right? There's a lot of work that's put into it for IT departments to prepare. So how do we go ahead and get our IT departments ready, for this transformation or for this move? It's an open question to any of the panelists.
Okay, let's get this for 2 pillars. First one, how can costing saving before cloud technology and company needed to pay for on-site service or outside service on the cloud? You must be get how come my cost and the hidden cost. Pillar number 2, how to improve a data security, data stored on the cloud and encrypted and making it safer than other hosting solutions. This is for me. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamid. Right, we have another question that's coming. So, how is the what kind of security assessment is done before we move from a cloud to an internal network or from an internal network to cloud? So, is there a security assessment that's done to analyze that, and how do we assess that?
Let me pick this one. I'm leading a team of architects in EMEA, Europe, Middle East, and Africa, responsible for just that. So what we do is we help our customers move to OCI, and one of the first things we do is we go and do an in-depth analysis of what they've got on-prem, on their site or in their data center or even other cloud before moving it to OCI. I'm not going to go through all of the details, just to focus on the security aspect. If you're running it within your network, protected behind a very strong firewall, and you have nothing exposed to the internet, then some customers tend to just go for HTTP. You don't need HTTPS or anything. The website exists within the boundaries of your walled garden. So you don't need to go and invest in HTTPS or high level of protection and monitoring. However, once you put it on the cloud, and if you decide to open it to the internet, and you might accidentally do, you need to be very careful about it. Because when you're operating on the cloud, you're operating in the open wild, you know. You're always one or two mistakes away from opening all of the ports to the internet directly to your database subnet. In order to solve that, several clouds, including Oracle, have what they call cloud guards. Cloud guard is the product, the name of the brand of the product on our side, but it's available under different names in different cloud. Sentinel and Agent, for instance, that goes and monitors what you're doing, and it acts as a safety net. So if you go and try to do a stupid mistake, or if you try to avail your database to the internet, whether malicious or accidental, it picks it up and it would stop you. So just to answer the question in two levels. First of all, yes, you need to take a deeper look into your security practice, given that you're going out of your walled garden. Second, all clouds, or most of the clouds, are providing this kind of security and a safety net to make sure that you don't do any mistakes.
Thank
Also,
you.
I will be add some small thing.
I'm sorry, Mr. Hamid.
I want to add a small.
Sure, please go ahead.
For this question, we can get our analytics very well with big data, and also get some artificial intelligence to how to go in the right way. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hamid. So just a follow-up question to the question that we had, how secure or safe is the data that we store on the cloud, keeping in mind phishing these days are so common, cyber theft is so common, right, because of the amount of data that's accessible via cloud. So how safe is the data that we store on cloud?
I think this warrants an answer from all of us, but from my perspective, just one word: it's as safe as you make it. Good. It's just as safe as you decided to do. It can be very safe or very unsafe. It's up to you.
Actually,
you.
if I want to add,
go ahead.
Again, cloud is similar to on-premise. There's no difference between them. The only difference that you're probably going to gain if the cloud provider can provide you with their analysis and their skill sets and the security that they have already built into their own cloud. Usually OCI, Azure, you name it, they have already worked on the security of their environment, because this is something paramount to them as much as to you. Otherwise, they're not going to be in that business to begin with. But again, the best approach is to work with the cloud providers that you're planning to go with, see all the security that they have done, all the procedure or the process, how they are securing their environment and your environment, obviously in this case. And based on this, you can make any adjustment you need to do, customization if possible. And obviously, as Mr. Badr just mentioned, it is how much you make it secure at the end of the day.
Right, thank you. And one last question that we have is, what are the security risks involved, in cloud computing? Bandar, if you could take that question, because you belong to, that kind of space.
I mean, again, the security risk that you have or assessment, as I mentioned, from perspective of customers of cloud who planning to move to the cloud, already actually moved partially to the cloud, is to do your normal assessment as if you are dealing with an on-premise. So there is no difference in that aspect. Don't assume that if your cloud is safer or vice versa. It's simply similar to on-premise. The thing that you need to, that's going to be different, is that you're going to have the cloud provider themselves. As I mentioned, you need to go ahead and dig and find out from them what assessment they have done, what security have done. I know that at least OCI have already worked, because they are here in the kingdom, which is a benefit, obviously, is to work and see what the NCA compliance they have already. They have probably documentation, they have white papers. So these will help you out to go ahead and forge your own documentation for the cloud. And this is what we did ourselves for that. And obviously any other cloud, as I mentioned, If you're dealing with the cloud provider outside the kingdom, then this benefit is not going to be with you for you. But again, at the end of the day, you need to deal with it as if it's on premise. But obviously, with the issue, or not an issue as much as a consideration, that you need to make sure that you can have enough SLA or enough confidence with the cloud provider outside the kingdom to make sure that no leakage or any consideration in terms of legality, at least compliance with the NCA. Will be the approach that I will go with.
Let me add one thing.
Go ahead, please.
Maybe we can get a planning from other practice and get comparing from on-site and on the cloud to get out of the risk. Thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Mr. Hamid, if there are any closing remarks from any of the panelists.
Right, and additionally, thanks. So additionally, I request all our eminent panelists to please share their thoughts for 1 minute, maybe one sentence, just to summarize before we close the panel on the topic itself, which is the changing role of IT departments when moving to the cloud in 2020. What is the message that you would like to give to our audience? Each one of you, if you could briefly share the knowledge before we close the panel.
Okay, first, be safe. Be safe, be safe. Thank you.
Okay, if I'm going to start, I mean, it's something coming. You have to go to the cloud, at least partially. So just go ahead and get the knowledge, understand and learn about it, and hopefully you will be in a good hand.
Yeah, the future.
Yeah, the future is in the cloud. Just go for it. That's my opinion.
Anyone else would like to add anything before Mr. Hamid would close?
No, thank you.
All right. So thank you very much, our renowned panel members, Mashari, Abdulaziz, Bandar, and Engineer Badr, and our eminent moderator, Mr. Mohammed Hamid, for this interactive and extremely insightful panel discussion around the changing role of IT departments when moving to the cloud in 2022. I'm sure there were a lot of questions exchanged, a lot of wonderful insights and knowledge that was shared during this session. Thank you once again for giving us your precious time for the summit today, and I hope all of you will have a lovely day ahead. Thank you once again.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.